and welcome to Exploring with the Estuarium. My name is Ariel, and I'll be your educator. Today we're going to investigate the causes of sea level rise, explore how it might affect us here in the Puget Sound, and understand how our estuaries could help.
During this lesson, you'll get answers to questions such as, what is sea level rise? What are the three main causes of sea level rise? And how will it impact my city? Our sea levels are rising, and it is predicted to continue to rise for many centuries at increasing rates. Sea level rise is the increasing of average global sea level. Sea level is not constant around the globe, which means that different oceans will rise at different rates. This is due to the effects of ocean currents and natural cycles. However, global sea level has been rising over the past century, and the rate has been increasing in the recent decades. This means that the sea level is rising, and it's rising faster and faster. From 1993 to 2014, the ocean rose 2.6 inches. The ocean continues to rise at a rate of about 1/8 of an inch every year. That might not seem like much, but when you think about it being 75% of the Earth's surface and that land only sits about 2 meters above sea level, it raises concern. By the year 2100, scientists predict that the sea level will rise another 1 to 4 feet. Sea level rise is a direct result of climate change. The three major causes of sea level rise are thermal expansion caused by warming oceans, the increased melting of mountain glaciers, and the melting of polar ice caps. Our Earth is absorbing more thermal energy than it is releasing. Some of the heat is absorbed by our oceans, causing them to expand. For example, if you heat water in a pot on the stove, the water absorbs the heat and expands until it starts to boil, releasing the energy in the form of bubbles and evaporation. As water heats up, the molecules become more energetic, causing the water to expand and take up more room. Our oceans are absorbing more than 90% of the increased atmospheric heat associated with emissions from human activity or greenhouse gases. The warming temperatures are causing mountain glaciers and polar ice caps to melt, which increases the volume of water in the oceans. Glaciers are bodies of ice on land that are constantly moving, carving paths through mountains and rock. As glaciers melt, the runoff flows into the oceans, raising the level. At both the North and South Pole, there is ice on land and ice floating in the ocean. The melting of the sea ice does not affect the level of the ocean, but the melting land ice contributes to about 1/3 of all sea level rise. Across the world, 8 of the 10 biggest cities are on the coast. Nearly 40% of the people that live in the United States live on the coast in cities with large populations. In these cities, sea level rise might cause flooding, shoreline erosion, and hazardous storms. It could even mean cities and people would have to relocate inland. Due to the higher sea levels, destructive and fatal storm surges can also move farther inland than before, leading to more frequent flooding. Sea level rise threatens local jobs, roads, bridges, subways, water supply, power plants, sewage treatment plants, and landfills. As the saltwater moves inland, it can pollute freshwater supplies and damage the freshwater ecosystems, such as rivers and lakes. But it can also cause saltwater intrusion in our freshwater aquifers or natural underground water storage, which we get our drinking water from. Nearly all infrastructure is at risk from the rising waters. Here in the South Sound, high projections have sea levels rising by 25 inches in 2050 and by 68 inches in 2100. Most likely, sea levels will rise about 13 inches in 2050 and 36 inches by 2100, all while Olympia is sinking 1 to 2 millimeters every year. Olympia is built on 434 acres and 1.9 miles of shoreline of fill, dredged from the inlet to fill parts of the Deschutes River Estuary and Moxley Creek Estuary to create our current downtown. Not all of downtown will be affected by sea level rise the same way or at the same time. Lower-lying areas are more vulnerable to flooding, followed by areas that are built on the fill. We already see the effects of high tides, high water flow from the Deschutes River, and sometimes both at the same time. Higher than normal tides can flow over the shorelines or back up through the stormwater system. When the Deschutes River has high water flows and it combines with high tides, Capitol Lake can overflow and flood parks or streets. All of the excess water could overrun the stormwater system, which usually directs water away from the roads and properties and back into the sound, leading to water bubbling up and out of manholes and catch basins around town, causing flooding in areas not directly near the shoreline. Right now, we need to plan and prepare for impacts of sea level rise on our coastal communities and water supplies. Estuaries can help coastal cities lessen the impacts of sea level rise. Estuaries act as a buffer to wave damage during severe storms and help to stabilize eroding banks because of the living shoreline of aquatic plants. Estuaries can also manage stormwater and improve water quality of the excess water by filtering out sediment and nutrients and by removing pathogens and other contaminants. As sea levels rise, the excess water floods into the estuaries, acting like a reservoir. Without estuaries, the water will have no detour but will overflow the shoreline and into the floodplain. You can see this by looking at the estimated sea level rise impacts of downtown Olympia. The floodwaters inundate the historic shoreline of the estuaries. In the most extreme projections, sea level rise floods almost the entire downtown. The estuaries can lessen the impacts of sea level rise by serving as our environmental sponge. The City of Olympia, Lot Clean Water Alliance, and the Port of Olympia are already planning and implementing sea level rise mitigation strategies. The Sea Level Rise Response Plan was developed in 2018-2019 through the partnership. The response plan will be implemented in phases and will incorporate different strategies of regulation, emergency response, and physical structures to deal with the rising sea levels. Olympia currently takes temporary actions to extreme high tides and flooding, such as sealing street gates, sandbagging, using living shorelines, and tide valves that prevent stormwater backflow into low-lying downtown streets. Although coastal communities will be impacted by climate change, we have the power to take action to reduce climate change impacts and adapt to the unavoidable impacts. The future rate of sea level rise will depend on whether we reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. You can make a difference and reduce your carbon emissions by switching off unused lights and power strips, replace light bulbs with more energy-efficient bulbs like LEDs, drive a hybrid or electric car, unplug idle chargers, bike to work or school, take the bus, invest in energy-efficient appliances, and encourage public officials to support energy-saving policies. If we can reduce our emissions that lead to the rise of greenhouse gases, we can reduce the projected sea level rise and eventually stabilize our seas.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Exploring with the Estuarium. If you liked our video, give it a thumbs up, and if you wish to continue to get more of our educational videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Facebook at the Puget Sound Estuarium. Bye!